Welcome to the Chase Merrill Podcast. I am your host, Chase Merrill, and we are all about helping people get freed up from what's holding them back so they can build up who they were made to be. In today's conversation, I have my friend and former high school psychology teacher, Jason Knowles, with me. This is such an awesome conversation. There's not a lot of people that I could say have impacted my life the way that Jason has. He is a personality. He is a presence. He's an authentic human being, and man, people feel so loved and seen by him wherever they go. Wherever he goes, they know that he's being somebody that is a safe place for them to get to be whoever they are, walking out the journey that they're on. I met him in high school and got impacted by his life as a psychology teacher, and also as somebody who shares a different worldview than I do. And I'm thankful for his relationship and the opportunity to have this conversation today. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to be challenged by it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to help us continue to make an impact with this podcast week in and week out, consider joining our new Patreon community. For as little as a cup of coffee a month, you can be a part of helping us get the message and mission of the podcast out to more people more effectively. This is a way that we can come together as a community, and you'll get access to behind the scenes stuff, additional resources and content, and so much more for just as little as $5 a month. You can head over to chasemerrill.com and click Patreon to jump in and get started. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Frontline Coffee Co. Delicious, bold, and expertly roasted small batch coffee for the everyday American. Frontline is not just about coffee. They're about supporting responders on the front lines, courageously caring for the rest of us. With every Frontline purchase, a percentage goes to supporting the brave men and women who are doing just that. Head over to frontlinecoffeeco.com and use promo code FREEDUP. That's FREEDUP, all one word, FREEDUP, to get 15% off your purchase. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Well, here we go. I've got my friend Jason Knowles with me today on the podcast. Welcome, Jason.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time.
Too long.
I don't know. I don't even know if we've had something like this where since I graduated high school, which I'll give people context in a second. You were a teacher at my high school in Rocklin, California, Whitney High School, and the class I specifically had with you was psychology, and it was a newer class at that time, and so it was super like everybody kind of wanted to jump in and take it because it was so fresh. But that's how we got connected. We'll talk more about that, but you since graduation day for me in June of 2009. I don't think we've seen each other in person or had like live communication outside of some Instagram, Facebook messages and comments. If I'm correct.
Yes, yeah, it's been a minute, as the kids say.
The kids say.
Yeah.
So, man, well, I'm just so thankful for taking your time to join me and to get to share the reason why I asked you to be a part of this 52 project and the impact you've had on my life. So just to jump in, will you just share a little snapshot of who you are, where you are in the world right now for people to get a chance to get a little more familiar with you?
Well, just completed year 28 as a teacher.
No way.
Yeah, I'm long in the tooth, bro. I was doing it when you were an infant.
Yeah.
Just finished year 28. I teach at Menlo Atherton High School down in the San Francisco Peninsula. My wife and I live here in San Mateo. We've been here for this area for the last 5 years. I left Whitney and Rocklin in 2018. And that's kind of where I am right now, at least physically. I still teach, still love it. I know a lot of my colleagues are thinking about retirement, and that's not even on my radar right now.
Wow.
Still love what I do and try to get better at it. So
yeah, it's awesome. You also had some where we overlapped some stuff in life too. Was on the football field, and are you still doing any kind of extracurricular coaching or anything like that?
I kind of pulled away from it the year after COVID because it just it was burning me out. I got kind of get too much of it, but California just approved girls flag football to be a fall sport. So I'm going to try and maybe dip my toe back into football coaching that way.
That's awesome.
Try and coach the girls team at our school. Whether or not that works out, of course, is anybody's guess. But
Yeah.
I do miss coaching football. I just don't miss the time away from home and all of that coaching high school football entails. So,
yeah, it's you kind of give a lot of your life to it whenever you sign up for that world.
Yeah, it's a second full-time job basically.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I'm trying to remember just before moving forward with just remembering back. Were you there from the beginning of Whitney's inception, or did you come the second year or the third year? I can't remember when you came.
I think Whitney opened in 2005.
Yeah, 2005 was my freshman year, and it was that first year of it being alive.
Yeah, and I got there in 2007.
Okay, that's right.
So yeah. So I was not an OG. I was a carpetbagger 2 years in.
You were you stayed 9 years after I graduated or so, like that. I mean, that's OG stay. You're there. You're amongst the best of them in the OG Whitney Wildcat land.
I tried to be. Yeah.
So I mean, that was part of that. Was you came in 2 years in, so we were all kind of, everybody's acclimating. At that point, we officially had a senior class because we started with just freshmen and sophomores in 2005, right? So 2007, I'm a junior and we have a senior class, and so you're there. You came in and kind of took Whitney by storm, though. You brought your Jason Knowles, Mr. Knowles, like. Just feel, aroma, the presence. I mean, you can't tell by the screen here, but you're a little taller than me. I'm at a real strong 5'8" on a good day. So I know you're definitely taller than that. And then you put that in high school, although that's not much taller than I was in high school. But you put that in the high school students' context, and you could see you from pretty far away on the campus.
Yeah, being my size, it's 6'8", and I won't say how many pounds. North of 300, south of 400. That's all.
There you go.
You can either embrace it or you can try and hide from it. And I, tried to minimize it for a long time, and that didn't work out too well. So I just thought, use it.
Yeah.
In whatever way that happens to be. But when you're a high school teacher, it can be an advantage, but it's not something I try and intimidate kids with, but it does give me some advantages in the classroom.
Yeah.
But I try not to use it in that manner.
Yeah. Well, that you have been part of why you made such an impact in my life is because you have remained your authentic self for the entirety of the time that I've known you. And what was so attractive to me as a high school student to you as a teacher and somebody I wanted to be around was that there wasn't any sense of embarrassment or shame or insecurity about who you were. It was like it was confidence. I was drawn to this dude's confident in himself, but he's not arrogant, and he's not prideful, but there's this, I'm comfortable in my own skinness that was about Mr. Knowles that I think a lot of people resonated with from all different kinds of backgrounds and belief systems and all of that. And I mean, you just had such a group of people that really were like, man, I feel safe, I feel comfortable, I feel like I can be myself around a Jason Knowles. And I think in a high school season, a lot of kids are just trying to figure out who the heck they are. Yeah. It's a pretty incredible thing to have in a teacher and a mentor kind of person like yourself. And so that was one of the things that quickly I was like, I want to get around this guy. So I think in the psychology class filled up fast, if I remember right. It was like, because you taught psychology and a couple other things. What was the other stuff that you did?
Well, I taught, when I first got there, I had AP Psych and then Intro to Psych.
That's right.
And I also taught the freshman geography class. And then my class built up, and pretty soon it was just AP Psych and then Intro to Psych.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much all I taught after that first year.
I remember, I was a peer counselor. I don't know if you remember that world. Okay. And so I started doing peer counseling from sophomore year on. And so I remember not knowing for sure if I was going to be able to get into that elective and wanting to do it so bad. I think I went to my peer counselor, like overseer, and was like, what do I need to do to make sure I get this? And I don't know what she did, but we ended up in your class. So what I want to jump into, kind of right in the beginning here, is the reality that when it comes to the two of us in our like worldviews, that they are different across the landscape of significantly for me as a more religious upbringing, and also present, like as a pastor, as a Christian, believes in God and has a relationship with Jesus. I remember very quickly coming into your psychology class and realizing, I don't even know how it happened, but I was learning how to be confident in what I believed in, and trying to be my authentic self, comfortable in my own skin. But then, discovered and found out we did not have the same beliefs around this space. And you were very comfortable with that and open about that. And even at times, I think in a healthy way, challenged me and pressed me with some questions or things to consider. And so that was something that I hadn't yet really experienced within a person that I really wanted to be around. That did not hold the same worldview and fundamental beliefs as me. And so I remember being this teenager and trying to just figure out, kind of who I was made to be, and going like, this is new for me. There's a guy that I really I respect and I like and I want to be more around, but how do we see things so differently here? And so, will you give people just a little win? Okay, so, most of the people listening to this podcast will have an idea of where I'm at and what I believe. Right. Will you just give people a window in so we can kind of go into that part of the conversation?
Well, I grew up my parents divorced before I was, probably 3 years old. And so I lived in two basically separate houses. And in neither one of them was religion a huge topic.
Sure.
There were obviously discussions about it, but it was never something I was raised in.
Yeah.
The way, probably the way you were.
Sure.
With your folks. And then in sixth grade, my mom put me into a Catholic school. And so that was really kind of my introduction into an organized religion was going to Catholic school. And I was not Catholic. So I was a fish out of water.
Sure.
For a wide variety of reasons with that. And then went to a Catholic high school, which was, we were taught things about Catholicism and about Christianity, but it wasn't indoctrinating at all. It was more historical, that sort of angle of religion. And then being around, when I went away to college, I was around a lot more Jewish, Mormon, evangelicals of all different stripes.
Yeah.
And I even took a class on the Bible as literature. It took the Bible as a piece of literature rather than a holy text.
Sure.
And it was deconstructed that way. But I've always been fascinated by religion, and it never sort of caught on, if you will.
Sure.
And then there were some members of my family who went off in that direction. It certainly helped them as become better people, so that was powerful to see that.
Yeah.
It was getting to where I am today as a atheist agnostic, and I do use both of those terms. It was a very sort of natural, organic process for me.
Yeah.
And it was intellectual as well. I took deep dives. I read a lot of books. And, just it sort of galvanized what I had always thought, but never really, what's the word? Never really expressed.
Sure.
People would ask me, what do you believe? And I would kind of tap dance around it.
Yeah.
Because, another thing about the way I was raised is that, pleasing people is a good thing.
Sure.
So I never wanted to, push anybody aside or have them push me aside because of that. So, I kind of just tap danced around it instead of just being honest. But then it just got to a point where that felt uncomfortable, that cognitive dissonance that people have when their behaviors and their actions don't match.
Yeah. And
so, and it took me till my 30s before I got comfortable with saying, I don't believe in a lot of the tenets of organized religions.
Yeah.
And it was, there was never an anger piece to it. It wasn't, losing my mom at 15 to cancer. I didn't go, well, F you, God, pardon me, or anything like that. It wasn't anger or anything. It was intellectual and it was organic for me.
Yeah.
So, and it just felt natural.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah. That, thanks for sharing, first of all.
Sure.
And so I think as I begin to get to know you in that light, like, okay, this guy's being authentic. He's not trying to please anybody, to appease their beliefs, or I remember, because I mean, especially my junior year, for me, junior year and sophomore and junior, all of them. I mean, I really I was pursuing the world of a relationship with God, like with everything that I had kind of in my being. It was a big part of, and still obviously is as I'm leading and doing ministry stuff now. But it was like it wasn't an add-on to my life. It was like the center, and so I didn't find the same kind of rejection that I would have expected to get from you or someone that represented where you were at in your beliefs with somebody in like my beliefs. And I just had never really seen healthy coexisting of people relationally, where literally to this day, like my whole family loves you, like my mom and dad and my brother.
Feelings
are
mutual.
Yeah, and it's like when you win in whatever way, like whatever social media can show winning in life, whether it's something you're celebrating or whatever, or something that you're sharing with that world, and we get to receive it. There's this genuine joy in my heart that rises up. That's like, yes, like I love that. I mean, this guy's awesome, and I want to tap into this because I want to get your kind of thoughts on, just what you've seen in the world of how it's been, maybe in my perspective, it's been really challenging and rare for people to be able to be, hey, like the core fundamental belief of how I view this whole thing called life is different. And yet, man, we can not only like tolerate each other, we could actually have a relationship or really celebrate when each other, when somebody's doing something. Like, I mean, if I had a kid or, something like that, something I shared, I mean, you were there, commenting congratulations or whatever, things like that. How have you experienced that world in the relationships and the people that you've had in your life with these worldview things, and what is your kind of take on that? How are you seeing it?
Well, I try not to be dogmatic about my own beliefs. And I also appreciate when people are not dogmatic about their own.
Yeah.
Now for me, if you can put it this way, judge people based on how they comport themselves. I don't care. I genuinely don't care what your belief system is.
Yeah.
When I meet people, that is the furthest thing from my mind. But, I see the husband you are, I see the dad you are, and to me, and, quite frankly, the pastor that you are. And to me, all of that speaks to your fundamental character. That even if, and I realize this is not a possibility, but even if we stripped away the Christianity from you,
Sure.
if that didn't exist, you would still be the same son, the same husband, the same brother, and the same friend that you are. And to me, that is much more important and much more of a manifestation of who and what you are than what it is you believe. And I know that your beliefs are center all of that for you. And to me, that's great. If that does it for you and that keeps you on the path that you want to go down and that you should go down, fantastic. More power to you. I support that. And for me, anybody that is authentic about that and lives that kind of life, I literally have absolutely no qualms about loving them, about being a part of their life or anything like that.
Yeah.
So my atheism and my agnosticism are probably of the many least important things about me. That's just my intellect. That's how I think.
Yeah.
That's how I view the world.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't have spiritual experiences.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that I don't question my own belief systems. I mean, I have taken a baseball bat to my thoughts multiple times and question them a lot. And I always come back to, this makes sense to me and this works for me. Because I don't feel like a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And so, for me to reject somebody because they are an evangelical or because they're a Jew or because they're Mormon or because they're anything that I am not, is, to me, that is the ultimate sin. That is the ultimate evil. To take something that somebody may need or enjoy, or that keeps them happy, makes them happy. If it makes you happy, genuinely happy, then I celebrate that. And that to me is what's important above everything else.
When you think about, you mentioned part of like where I feel like Jesus is the center, and all of those good husband, good dad, good pastor, good friend. I do really believe that I'm building those things on that foundation of the Jesus world in my life, not being that center. In your life with where you are right now, like you mentioned, you've had seasons of baseball bat to your belief systems and different things or different views or whatever. Mm-hmm. What would you say when you look at, waking up each day, looking forward, is part of the, like, that I don't know what else to say. True north just sounds too cheesy, but like that true north, if you will, like place that's helping you go, okay, this is how I'm gonna be, or this is how, in a moment where I want to say, screw you to somebody, like you're whatever, I'm gonna choose to be gracious or forgiving. Like, what are some of those things that you go, man, help you go? Or do you have, just because part of why I'm asking, Jason, is because in my context, right, with the majority of the people that I'm around in the Christian space, we have an answer for that world that's well, in the scriptures or Jesus, whatever, that's helping be that foundation. And sure. I think it's challenging for people to see it, how somebody who doesn't has the ability to like still be somebody who's a positive contribution to like healthy relationships and people, if it's, not that. So what is that world for you?
I guess the question that I constantly ask myself is, does this help? Whether it's my attitude, whether it's, how I treat the people who are driving on the freeway.
Sure.
My students, my dog, it is what I'm doing being helpful. Is it helping them? Is it helping me? And if the answer to those is no, then I'm not always successful, but I try and remove that from my psyche or from my experience. Because I think, one of the fundamental things about humans is they want to feel useful.
Yeah.
They want to feel like they're doing something that is bigger than themselves.
Would you use how would you use the word purpose around that? Would you use the word purpose, or would you say, yeah, okay, I'm just trying to think about it.
Yeah. For me, it was, I guess, my purpose in becoming a teacher was to be for adolescents, to be for them what my teachers and my coaches were for me.
Yeah.
Because they were my port.
Yep.
My father was an alcoholic, and I, spent the majority of my time with him. And so that created a very sort of, I don't want to say unstable home life, but it wasn't a psychologically safe home life.
Sure.
And so my teachers and my coaches showed me what, a healthy sort of interaction with an adult can really look like.
Yeah.
And so I've always wanted to be a safe port for kids who are in a storm of some sort.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not always successful at it.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear, but that is what I try and do is, I try and use what gifts or talents or whatever you want to call it that I have, and try and do for them what my teachers and coaches did for me, because they literally, they saved me both academically and emotionally at that time.
Yeah. Well, I can 100% confirm, like, that's what you've done. I mean, you have, and I'm my graduation, in 2012 is when I graduated. I'm sorry, 2009, I got married in 2012. 2009 was when I graduated. The speech, the teacher chosen speech, or whatever it was called, I forget was you. You came in, and in 2 years, your students were like, yeah, this is the guy we want speaking on our behalf. I don't know. That's a pretty massive testament to a shortened amount of time and your ability to make that kind of impact. And obviously, I know you're still doing that to this day. But I'm really encouraged. To me, I think what's been encouraging is the way that you've engaged the. I remember having lunches. I remember you were gracious enough to say, "Hey, I'll open up my class. You can come have lunch with me, during the school day." And you just were open and willing to engage in tough conversations, questions, challenge, and I wonder why that world is so difficult for so many people, and what would be something that you would say to encourage? Let's take this from two sides for a moment, although I don't look at it like that really at all. But the sides maybe we're sitting on the table. For you to say to somebody on my side of the table how we could be more effective and healthy around engaging people that don't believe the same as us. Like, what would be something that you would say to somebody sitting on my side of the table? And then I have another question to that angle, but I'll stop there for the question's sake.
For me, it's boy, that's why did you say yes? This is somewhat of a different question, but what did I do? And it may have nothing to do with that. It's probably brought me food, Chase.
Yes, I had to figure out some way for you. No, but for real, like you're sitting here with me today, and on a Saturday, taking your time having this conversation, right? And so there was something, that created enough of you to go, yeah, this dude, he's doing something to where we can do this. Right? And so, and I'm not putting that all on me. I think very much so. It's the maturity and the type of person that you are. But how would you encourage somebody that's sitting on my chair to go, how do they have more conversations like this, relationships like this, opportunities to be in people's lives like this with people that just believe in a different space than them? How would you challenge and encourage them to do that better?
Well, number one, be a good listener. It's a cliche, but listen to understand, and put your response gun in the holster.
Yeah.
Kind of keep it there. And then, like any conversation, look where you have common ground.
Yeah.
Because and this is what bothers me about so much discourse today, whether it's political or racial or religious or whatever, is people are so they paint themselves into corners.
Yeah.
So with some of their rhetoric. And so I think if you're willing to listen, be willing to ask somebody a difficult question, not to trap them,
right,
but to force them to explain, this is why I believe what I believe, or this is why I think the way I think. And then be open to the reciprocal process. Okay, now come at me. Ask me a difficult question.
Yeah.
Because you know this, being a husband. Sometimes you got to sit down with your spouse and you got to have some very uncomfortable conversations sometimes.
Right.
But how else do you grow? How do you grow as a husband? How do you grow as a teacher? How do you grow as a person? How do relationships grow and get better unless you can rip the Band-Aid off and have these difficult discussions, with the goal being not to prove them wrong or not to convert them, but just to understand.
Yeah.
And when you can look at it through sort of that lens, I knew how you felt and what your belief system was. And like I said, I did not care.
Right.
Which is not to say I didn't care about you as a person, or that
sure.
I didn't care that was important to you.
Yep.
But that was not going to be the linchpin of our relationship.
Right.
Now, having said that, there are some people who are in your world who have, and it's mutually sort of kind of put up a wall
sure.
with, but that never made me, I don't want to say feel good, but sometimes you have to do the addition by subtraction thing. Sure. Sometimes, for a wide variety of reasons, relationships become toxic and it's best just to part company.
Sure.
But with you, that was never a concern for me, because I knew you were genuine about it and it was important to you.
Right.
And if something is important to somebody, you can find a way to communicate with them, not sacrifice your own integrity or your own belief system,
yep.
And still live in the same world and get along. And I don't want to say tolerate each other, because tolerance for me has a negative connotation.
Sure.
Genuinely celebrate and love each other.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that's possible.
Yeah. I think that's really good. I think part of the tension that I have had as I've continued to mature in my relationship with God, my faith and belief in that world, is that as the more I pursue that and journey and grow in that world, the more I realize what I really believe and what I don't believe begin to get more clear. And as I get more clear around what I really believe, around the fact that like I'm literally hanging my hat on the belief that like there really was a man named Jesus who lived and he did the things that he said he was going to do, and he died and he rose again, and I'm putting my faith in that kind of world, because that's real for me, and because that world motivates and compels me to go, okay, if this thing is really not all that there is, if there is really an eternity that's got this world, and I can see in my belief in the word, the Bible and all, like that's where that's going to be, then to genuinely love someone all the way to that point of bigger picture love is to long for them to come into a similar belief, not to convert. See, that's just been my challenge, because it's like, if I didn't really believe what I'm saying, then I really wouldn't care, right? For me, if it was nominal, if it was like an add-on accessory to my life, and a little cross that I wore, and was convenient for me because I wanted to feel good sometimes, like but if I actually believe it, and the stuff that Jesus said is true, then it should compel that person to then go, well, then I hope that this is, and pray that this is something, because it's around that world of a bigger picture of love. And I think for me, where I've been challenged, and I don't see a lot of people do that well, is how do you remain true and authentic to that belief if you really believe it, and still do everything you just described, which was not always be in that like convert mode. And because I have friends in different religions, and I know how that feels, right? And so I can totally put myself in that seat of like, whether it's my Jehovah's Witness friends that are knocking on my door, and man, they are convinced that what they're believing is true. And even though I believe in Jesus and I'm Christian, there's still things that they would say, you don't believe right, you got to believe like us. And I'm going, who are you? So I can get that. And I think it's a tension a lot of people don't hold well, and it's unattractive. And I also think it repels people. And I would just say to you, man, I'm just thankful that you've allowed me in that season of my life of high school to be, I'm sure, overly passionate at times, and even, I don't know, just I remember even being in your class and probably saying some things that you probably were like, hey, simmer down, Chase. I need you to chill a little bit. But you just gave a lot of grace and maturity in that space that I'm just super thankful for, because I think you've helped this conversation so much more than hurt it, and I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal and a big missing piece in a lot of our society.
Well, and what is a school for?
Yeah.
You can challenge your students to think differently. Again, with not in the hopes of converting them or making them think that you are right.
Sure.
But just, I've always been a firm believer in, question everything. There's no harm. There is literally no harm that can come from asking difficult questions.
Sure.
And, that can be asking God when you're praying difficult questions. Why?
Totally.
Why is this happening? And the answer may never come. But, if it helps you galvanize, sometimes doing that helps you galvanize that, hey, this is the right way for me.
Yeah.
And, for me, and I don't reject, Christianity entirely, because I think if you're really honest, you can look at Christianity and there are lessons there that are universal, that are incredibly important about, loving each other, and about helping your neighbor, and being generous, and being kind, and being graceful, being forgiving.
Yeah.
So I don't, just because the dogmatism didn't stick, doesn't mean the other things didn't.
Sure. Yeah.
And, when, if I rejected people because of their religious beliefs, I would live a very, very lonely existence.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers, the mathematics themselves
totally
dictate that, if you reject people just because they believe a certain way, that's to me, that's a ridiculous stance to take. And again, if you can ask them difficult questions with the basis for that being, I want to understand this better,
right?
Then to me, those are difficult conversations that are easy to have.
Yeah.
Because you're not going in with both guns blazing.
Yeah. Right. That posture is really important.
Yeah.
So the kind of the why of this whole podcast, helping people get freed up from the things holding them back to being built up into who they're made to be. It seems and appears to me, and it has since I was, with you in high school, that you really are walking in who you were, made to be, who like you, when you think about your life and the person you want to be, like you're walking in it. I'm sure there's areas, you want to grow and have different things that are whatever, but like, I think it's pretty obvious to most of the people that interact with you, like, again, that confidence and security that you exude and have been walking in for a long time, is there. You're doing something right. The question I kind of want to, you're experiencing the who you are made to be part. What in your life, or maybe even now, do you still see some window? What's something that you feel like you were held back by, that you overcame, that you got freed up from?
Sure.
That was that's something that just made a big and significant impact.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, my father was an alcoholic, and unbeknownst to me, until I was almost 40 years old, he had depression as well, and it ran in my family. And looking back on my life, I didn't get diagnosed with depression until I was almost 40 years old. And retrospectively looking back, not knowing and subsequently not addressing that depressive disorder that I have and struggle with, really kept me from living an authentic life.
Yeah.
And so in the early 2000s, I started going to counseling and seeing professional therapists. And that quite literally saved my life.
Yeah.
There was a very dysfunctional marriage in there that, I had to find a way to get out of, and finally got the courage to and admit to myself that it was not working. There was a suicide attempt in there. And, I couldn't sit with all of these things that had been bothering me. And it wasn't an event-based or a stimulus-based depression. It was how I sort of was viewing the world and how I was viewing myself within the world. And so with the help of a lot of therapy, I saw the world as less black and white and started seeing myself in less black and white terms. And so that provided me with a lot of clarity about, because the confident person you saw in the classroom was masking a massive amount of insecurity.
Sure. Massive
amount. And so I had to kind of find a way to reconcile. I had a therapist, who said, when you look back at your career as a teacher and look at all the relationships you formed and look at what kids say to you and write to you, he's like, does it make any sense that you don't feel like you're doing anything, that you don't feel like you're contributing? He's like, you're being ridiculous. And he put it in those terms. I don't think he said those words, but he said, the data supports,
right,
you're pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And so that kind of flipped the switch a little bit. And so for me, it was confronting that. You want to talk about a difficult conversation, try having the one
right
that's completely internal,
right,
and challenging your own, again, beliefs about yourself and getting out of that confirmation bias feedback loop that people with depression tend to trap themselves in.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the kind of the linchpin that got me out of the funk, so to speak. And, I still regress sometimes and go there, but the span of that is getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
That's so good, man. Thanks for being vulnerable and sharing. Like I just really respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to resonate with that. And I'm inspired by just that journey. At maybe some other time I'll jump in, and in fact I'll on another episode in the coming weeks and months I'll unpack more of this side of my story I haven't really shared yet with really very many people, but the 2022 was the hardest year of my life, bar none, on a personal level, and part of what walked me through that journey was beginning to see a counselor and therapist twice a month throughout the year. And it was a game changer. I didn't realize a lot of things that I needed to unpack in different ways that they were, I've never been against counseling. I've never ever, I've always, as a pastor, I'm quite often reminded that, I'm not a counselor, and there are professionals out there that really do an incredible job and need to be, and they're being, overtaxed right now too. There's wait lists up the yin yang, but I've been super thankful for that journey for myself in my own emotional and mental health. And so, just to, appreciate that vulnerability there. And man, praise God, as I will say, praise God for a failed suicide attempt. Praise God for your willingness to journey through the lies that you believed at times about yourself, and didn't give up. Because again, you're sitting here with me, man. I'm not blowing smoke. I'm not saying this to make anybody think something or make you feel anything, as much as I'm sitting here in 14 years removed from high school, and not having a conversation like this between that season and now, and man, the impact that you made and are still making in people's lives and students' lives is immense. And so, just to affirm and reaffirm the truth narrative that that I'm thankful that therapist reminded you to look at the data, because it's there and it's continuing to grow. And
thank you.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for that. One of the things, just to kind of wrap up here, just a couple things about our time at Whitney. Some people that, so I have four guys that since 8th grade I have I have stacks of them at my house. There's 4 guys, there's 4 student friend guys, and then there's you. So there's 5 total, okay, of guys that in my world of the last 14 years plus 4 for the students, that I pray for, and I pray that wherever you are in life, ultimately my prayer, my longing is that, man, like you would experience and encounter the true and living God. Like, that's my prayer. And that, man, that the Lord meets your needs, that he's whatever you're walking through, he's walking through. So there's 4 guys. It's Zach Graves, Taylor Irwin, Eric Judd, and Ryan Shimmerhorn. Those 4 dudes who you know from our years at Whitney.
Well, yes.
And because at 8th grade at Granite Oaks Middle School in Rockland, California, I got to be introduced to those guys and became friends with them and played football, and God stamped them on my heart. And then I met you my junior year, and it was a similar stamp. And so the 5 of you have been, if you were to look through my stacks for the last 14 years, I can't tell you how many, hundreds of pages between the days of prayer, just writing things out. Your name is written out, and it continues to be to this day. So even if the belief in the God I'm praying to is different, just, man, I hope you're encouraged to know, man, I'm thinking about you guys and praying for you just in your life, that, man, you would continue to experience this beautiful gift called life, which I really feel like you do a great job living and helping people see is a good thing to live and to have in front of them. So
thank you.
Yeah. I'm just so thankful for the time to chat today, and I'm super excited for a reconnection point, because that, even though 14 years have gone by, and now for the foreseeable future, I'll have this. I'll have this time and this moment, when I see your posts, when I get to see and celebrate things, or you share things, it'll be different in that way that I got a more recent touch point. And so whether you're traveling the world with, Miss Maine, who's not Miss Maine anymore, what's her
Strain.
Yes, that's right. Susie.
She had to find a guy that she could rhyme her name with.
Right. Oh man, you guys brought so much life to Whitney. But man, thank you to the time today, and thanks for making an impact on my life. Keep making an impact on the lives of those students and people that you have in your life in front of you now. So,
and you too.
Thank you, man. With that, thanks for listening. Until next time, see you later.
Love you, man.
Love you too.